Ok, buen día y bienvenidos a nuestro podcast. Yo soy el gringo.
Y yo soy la Chola. Y gracias por estar con nosotros. We are very happy to have you here today. We've invited for our celebration for the Hispanic Heritage Month. We've invited one of our favorite artists, not only locally, but we'll be discussing some of her work in El Paso and other areas of the Southwest. Let's welcome Citlali Delgado. Hola, Citlali.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Glad you could be here with us.
Thank you for doing this with us. Okay. Citlali comes from, her hometown is in El Paso. She is a Bordeña, comes from a family of artists and activists. She was awarded the Yale Norfolk School of Arts summer residency program that took, I believe, 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yes.
And she was also awarded the Live Mas Scholar through the Taco Bell Foundation.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for doing this. We
Super
appreciate it.
impressive.
Thank you.
Yes, so
I remember reading about you on the hotline that
Oh.
comes across the issue, and I thought that is that's got to be a cool experience, especially being able to go to Yale and have all that kind of stuff. So,
and being such a young artist.
oh yeah,
That is
and
to me
someone
what's
from
amazing.
here that we can all relate
Absolutely.
to. So that's cool.
So we have a couple of questions, not a couple, a bunch of questions that we want to discuss with you, and we just want to make sure that we give you some exposure because of how proud we are of your work, and also you know that I'm a fan, and I want to make sure that others get to see what you're doing, with your work. I know that you just finished your mural, so
Yes.
I don't know if you want to start talking a little bit about that. I saw that you are showing your work, so tell us a little bit about that first mural.
Okay, so yes, I have just completed, as of a couple days ago, from this interview, my first independent mural. So, about my upbringing, and my dad is an artist, and I've kind of grew up, like doing murals with him, like filling in colors for him and stuff like that. And so, a lot of my mural work has been, logos of businesses and stuff that they want that. It's not really what I paint, but, I've been getting those reps in. So, having my first independent mural be finished is a big accomplishment for me because it's always been my dream. In my mind, I think I want to be a traveling muralist. So, I got in connection with Carlos Melendres. He is the great-great-grandson of Pablo Melendres, who founded the city of Las Cruces. So, my mural is on Mesquite Street, so it's on El Camino Real, and he wants to do a series of murals, and this project would be called, or is called, Murals with a Message. So, the one that he wanted me to paint as a woman, he wanted a wall dedicated to women, and specifically women in war. So I have painted 4 figures. One of them is Anadelita, so the women who fought in the Mexican Revolution. The second one, her name is Clara Barton. She created the Red Cross. And then the third one is Sojourner Truth. She was an abolitionist. She was an ex-slave who was illiterate, but she can speak and motivate people with her speeches. Real nice, real good. And then lastly, who was it? Oh, the Teste. She was an Apache warrior who could outrun, outkill, outshoot, outfight any of her peers, men or women. So, a lot of powerful imagery right there just on the women themselves. But Carlos really wanted me to add quotes because his big thing is, educating the public, educating the community without, necessarily having to go into a gallery or, go into a school space or, anything like that. Like have this information out for the people, just make it accessible. So I've added a quote for each one, each woman. And yeah, so it was this big project. I got it done in a couple weeks, a couple weekends, and a couple more days. So
We had the privilege of going last week and being with Citlali as she was working on the final part, and at the end of this podcast, we're going to include the videos that we shot there. We actually shot the video with the 360-degree camera. So if you can't go down in person, which of course we recommend that you do to get the whole experience, you can have the 360 experience. And one of the things we'd like to recommend too is if you have your VR headsets, you can view that video through that, so you can have the experience as if you were there. And Citlali's doing some talking on there. We got to see the neighborhood, and you get the whole feel for that. You mentioned about that, your motivations for that. That was kind of a project that he presented to. Did you select the four?
The four women?
Yeah.
No. So, I mean, it's an independent mural in the sense that I got it like painted,
Right.
but this was his vision.
Okay.
But it was more of something I wanted to do because it's painting the figure. I love drawing portraits. I love drawing people, and this is more of what I want to do, and educating the community. Like,
Yeah. That leads to the question: what motivates you? What are your motivations and inspirations to create the things you create?
That's
a loaded question.
heavy
It is because I do have a lot of motivation. I think the biggest thing is my identity as an El Pasoan, as a Chicana, as someone from this region. I have a lot to speak up about, and I have a lot to prove, not to anyone but to myself, that I deserve to be in big spaces and stuff like that. So I think my motivation comes from the support of my family, especially. It's kind of difficult, I think, to be like, oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up. Like, it's not that secure, and like it's kind of a difficult. I mean, it all depends, but my family, the people that say little things like, oh, I saw this calls to artists. I think you might be interested. Like, people like that, like little things like that, is what keeps me going, and mainly being from a city that is predominantly of people of Mexican descent, that like me wanting to take care of them, and continuing the like Chicano art movement is really what I want to continue to do, because I grew up with books of like Chicano artists, and those are the people I've grown up seeing, not like these Eurocentric artists and like these master artists. Like, I'm barely learning about it now. Like, I've heard their names, but continuing what they have started, and using that space, like they broke the barriers for people like me. So that's my motivation, pretty much. Just trying to see success for my people here.
That's great.
I also think that, that's why I'm such a fan of your work, because it resonates with me as a Chicana, and I think that, as an activist, because you grew up with your parents being activists, your grandmother being an activist. So for me, I think that those are the seeds that I can see and relate to in your paintings and in your work. So keeping that in mind, if you want to follow also Citlali's work, you can follow her at Arte Citlali on Instagram. You can see a lot of these projects that you've worked on. But keeping that in mind, how is it that you are able to bring that culture into your murals and into your paintings? How does that come through to you? Like, how does that happen? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think starting with the murals, it's thinking about California area, Los Angeles, San Diego, a lot of the murals, the Chicano murals, or I think murals in the United States has really sparked from that movement, the Chicano art movement, because that was like a big thing. Like, if you think about Chicano Park, that place where they displaced all, like, that Mexican neighborhood, and what they did was paint on the walls, paint on the pillars. Chicano, or like muralism, has come from this like way of activism, like that's where murals in general in the United States come from. It's like Mexican Americans painting about the history, educating the public, and in spaces that are accessible. So that's how I connect that, and I think that's mainly where I connect like murals into my paintings. That's like the way I think about it. And also like ceramics, I started developing my practice in ceramics and figuring out how to glaze paint on a 3D space. Like one of my most favorite recent sculptures that I made is a muñeca. I dressed her up as an Adelita, and I did a piece on the femicides in Mexico. And I painted her skirt. Like I did her figure, but I painted her skirt. And the way I thought about it was like, I kind of want to make it like a mural. Like that's how the composition, that's how I envisioned the composition. So I think that's a lot of the ways I connect that through my ceramics and painting. I don't know. I say that I have visions. That's how I create my work. I have a topic that I'm thinking about, and it's like when I'm about to go to sleep. Oh, I see something like, oh,
kind of dreamland.
Yes, exactly. So, I think I have kind of a diverse way of painting, especially now that I've learned how to push myself to think conceptually. I have different ways of depicting certain things. Like I could go from a more abstract thing to more of a figurative representation. So it all depends on how I want to depict something. Do I want to maybe like roughly handled, or do I want it highly rendered, or it all depends. It's when I see a vision, I put that together.
That's great. So you've won. La Chola mencionó. She talked about some of the things that you've accomplished. So how do you feel about all the recognition and accolades that you're getting because of your work? That's got to be almost a dream come true, but you never know what's coming next, right?
No, yeah, I feel like everything has happened so fast. So a little bit of background. I've always grown up drawing. I knew how to do that, but I never took the time because I was always a student athlete, actually. So that's what would take up my time. We would travel. But when COVID hit, all of that was canceled. So I saw my little sister painting in like the kitchen area when we were all in lockdown, and I was like, I could do that. So that's when I started, and I'm a really big football fan. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I would start painting and drawing the football players and posting it on TikTok, on Instagram, and I would have people tag them, the football players, and they would actually comment, like the actual NFL players. So,
cool.
That's where it kind of started, my junior year of high school. And then senior year, I took my first high school art class, and I started, winning awards, and, kind of showing what I could do. And I was like, I could really do something with this. So I'm glad that happened because I had been wondering, what am I going to do in college?
Next.
Like, I know I'm going to go to college, but what am I going to do? So also I did early college in high school. So this is my third year in college, but I'm going to graduate already.
Early.
So early. So, these recognitions, like it's been like kind of like in an incline, like really steep incline. But I just feel really grateful because, in my mind, I don't think I would be here without, the support of my parents, without the support of my community. And just like even the professors have been a big part of my success. I think they really care about what they're teaching, which is amazing. But, again, I didn't say it earlier, but this is not what I do it for, obviously. But it is nice to know that there is some recognition that comes with the work, because I put a lot of labor into my work. I'm in the studio for hours on weekends, and so it does feel nice. It's like I think it's kind of funny, the different phases of being an artist. Like, one night I can go from looking all like crazy, all dirty, all over the place, my hair all greñuda, to the next day going to the exhibition, I'm all dressed up and like, it's kind of funny, but I enjoy it all.
I just found another connection between you two. Los Steelers.
Los
Son
Steelers.
fanáticos de los Steelers.
I am, yes, a hardcore fan.
Queen.
So yes, that's why I'm interviewing her. If she had been Cowboy, no, I'm just kidding. Okay.
That's great. So many. Those are the good stories that we hear that come out of COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
And perhaps you would have come onto it later, but it happened then, and
Yes.
all the other things that have come. it's really inspiring. Thanks.
And that's the thing that I find so astonishing, because she says she really started taking it serious during COVID, right? But when you look at her art, it's very mature, it's very
It
developed.
looks like it's been going on for years.
I thought, when I was seeing her art and not knowing her in person, I thought it was somebody older for some reason, because I was making all these connections just with, artists that I knew from the community. And then, we accidentally met during it was like advising session, right?
We met. I registered. I had one elective left in my courses, so I was like, I need to be practicing my Spanish, and so I registered for Spanish for heritage learners. But then the class that you were teaching, you told me and a number of students that we need to move on to like the next level.
And I lost her.
Yeah, so we met one day, but it was like not even really meeting. It was just like, oh hey.
But we made connections.
by.
Yes, same as.
So keeping that in mind, sorry.
No, I was just.
I wanted to ask you, because I know that what's coming next is something more obviously developed, and you're going to be working on your final project, right, for graduation. But prior to that, I know that you were in the junior, the junior show that you participated in with Coatlicue.
Yes.
Was it Coatlicue?
Yes.
And Celia Alvarez was actually a juror there. So I wanted to hear about that, because it's Celia Alvarez, we all know her from the
She's
community. I wanted to see how you felt about having her judge your work, and if you can talk to us a little bit about Coatlicue.
No, absolutely. So that was my second time in the NMSU juried student exhibition. And at that time, I feel like I didn't have that much work to show. I had just come back from December break, and some of the things that I had made sold off, but that one was still there, Coatlicue. So the way I created that project was during, like in December, November, when I took a narrative painting class here at NMSU. There was one theme or one prompt, and the professor told us, we have to choose a natural phenomenon. And I chose earthquakes, and then she said, create a narrative story of how those come to be. So like there was one example of like a large like cloud woman dusting the earth, and that's how like the clouds are made and stuff like that. So things like that, and I was like, how can I connect that to what I want to represent? And so I was like doing my research on Aztec goddesses, specifically women. And I came up with Coatlicue. I was like, okay, I want to start off with earthquakes, because that's kind of difficult to represent. Like, how do you do that? I wanted to challenge myself. And then I saw that she is the creator and destroyer of the earth, and she wears this like serpent snake skirt. And I was like, oh, I would really like to, connect those two. So what I did was I had her kind of sleeping or just laying on the ground, and the snakes coming out of the ground. And what I said was, every time one of the rattlesnakes rattled, that's when an earthquake would happen. So I wanted to integrate that with the colors of the typical Mexican houses that you see, like very colorful. I wanted to just let loose, and not make it so rendered out, but to where you could see the figure. And I just wanted to have fun with it, and actually I got it done, and I really did love it. And so I submitted that to the juried student exhibition, and that was one of two that was accepted. I also did a painting on, I did a series on like Greg Abbott and his Operation Lone Star, and I did a piece on Ceneba 4. But Coatlicue, I was like, yeah, they set it up in the exhibition, and yeah, especially when I saw that Celia Alvarez Munoz was the one who was choosing, who goes in, who stays out. I felt really confident, because I was like, she's an El Paso woman. Like,
right.
how cool is that to have? Because the year prior, I had this really big painting that I did, but it didn't make it. And so it's like all up to the curator. That's a part of being an artist. Like, you don't always get what you want or whatever. Like, it's all subjective.
Yeah.
So having her be the judge of it all, I felt, I don't know, I felt like she, like, I see herself in me. I see, like, I hope I'm like her in the future. Like, I hope, I've made some big moves and changed or inspired people. So yes, so I unfortunately I never went to talk to her. I was kind of scared.
I'm nervous. Yeah, I would be too.
I was nervous. Like, I'm big on making connections, especially at shows and stuff. She didn't get to attend the show, but I did write her a letter because the museum actually purchased it, which is a big thing.
Which museum was that?
The University Museum.
Okay.
So it's part
Nice.
of their collection now, which is like chilling to understand. I don't know. It's still processing in my mind, but in order to receive that award, you have to write a letter to those who you
The
know.
jurors.
Mhm,
Because you won best in show.
best
with
in
that
show
one.
as well. Yes.
Mhm.
So what I did was I printed out like these cards with that actual painting on it,
Oh.
and then I wrote to her, and I was like, I did mention like I just got accepted to Yale. Like, I can't wait to like mention your name over there, and like like you've done a great deal in the art world, and I want you to know, like, someone who's up and coming, really
Next
sees
generation.
yeah,
You're
what
carrying
you've
the-
done. And so I don't know, it's just been this crazy, and she's also graduated from NMSU, from what
Okay.
I understand. So those certain similarities, it's like
fell
it's
away.
like kind of a reflection. So very grateful, really. It's
Like
a crazy
passing up the
experience.
torch.
Mhm,
Yeah.
see?
Well, somebody needs to do it. That's good.
Yeah.
And so that was just this last year, or
Yes, it was in the spring semester.
during spring semester?
Yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, very recently.
that's, I'm not familiar with that type of competition or
Mhm.
whatever you call it. So is that done every semester, or,
Yeah.
or once a year here?
It's once a year, so
Okay.
it's in the spring. So this, like, typically the fall semester is when all the students are loading up their work and like
Right.
creating, and then in the spring is when we have the jury student show. It's when the BFA students have their show,
Okay.
And also the MFA students. So in my case this year, I'm aiming to be in the jury student show. Hopefully I get in, but I'm also going to be in the BFA exhibition. So it's a lot of things.
Now that you mentioned it, is an MFA in the works for you?
Absolutely. That's what I hope to do. So when I went to the residency, I was talking about like, I'm going straight to graduate school right after I graduate. But all the student professors at Yale were like, no, take a year off.
Do some stuff.
You need some rest, and also build your portfolio outside of the academic space. Like, do it on your own. So that's my plan. After I graduate, I am going to take a year, maybe 2 off. To really, do what I want. Well, not that I don't do what I don't want, but, just load up my work, build my portfolio, and show. And then I hope to go to Yale. That's, like, my number one option, but that's also because I haven't seen any other options, really. That's, like, I want to be the best of the best, because they are number one in painting and drawing for graduate schools. But I also do want to invest in scoping out other schools to see what they have to offer.
Their
Yeah, so.
opportunities.
Mhm.
Oh, that's great. So thinking of that, I always recommend it's a good idea to take a little bit of a break just so you recoup and, as we say in Spanish, cargar las pilas, no? So you
Claro.
get recharged and go out. What types of things do you think you'll work on? I mean, you mentioned taking your art on the road. You can literally do that with
Yes.
painting murals. So do you have any plans in mind that you?
Well, I cannot say that I do, because even right now, I'm like a little in a little space where it's like, okay, I don't really know how to move forward.
Okay.
Because leaving the residency, I kind of left with more questions than answers, and now I'm like thinking about every single aspect of, what I create, and but I am excited to see, because also taking art history courses, like these advanced classes, I've seen that really affect how I think about my work as well. So, keep learning about those certain things. And also a really big thing I've been doing recently is listening to podcasts. Like, I listen to music, whatever, but I'm like, I have a lot of time to learn, even when I'm like making ceramics, even when I'm painting. Like, I could have this intake of information, and I've really found it very useful. So all that I know will be applied into my future work. So I cannot say how it's going to develop, but I'm excited to see what's going to come from that.
Right. And what are you working on right now? And now that you finished this mural on Mesquite?
So I've been working on my first painting of the semester. I would say it's a little different from what I'm used to doing. I'm really a representational artist, or that's how I've thought to be. But I keep saying, coming from the residency, it's like really opened up opened up my eyes on how people work. I have really kind of started to understand what abstraction is. Like, what does that mean? How can I push myself to and allow myself to think harder of certain things, like how I don't have to be so literal in all the aspects of my work. I can allow myself, and also allow my audience, and trust them to let them develop their own ideas of when they see my work. So I have a figure in my work, but the background is abstracted. Some of the foreground is as well. And currently I'm learning about American painters in my art history class. So how they put their body into their abstracted work, and what that means. So, instead of really you're rendering this out finally, I started putting my body into my work, and going at it with how I feel. And so I'm doing a piece on what it is to be a woman in the art world, or what it is to be a woman also in general, because there has been certain growing up, I've how to explain it, I've seen little hints of how men are to women, and the bad things that could come from that. And so there's always this intuition in my mind, I do not want to go out in any sort of bad way. So mine is this painting is how do I represent this intuition, and show that to other girls, and to always be aware, and what it is to paint for my life is what I've been representing. And I also think of, I recently talked to my partner about this. He said something about these tools that we're using, they're kind of like arsenal. So it's can I win this war with my arsenal? So that's what I'm doing. It's something that I'm still working on right now. I should be finished this weekend, but it's something that's different. I say that I have these visions, but this one I didn't have a vision. I was I have to get an assignment done. How do I feel? And I really felt myself with adrenaline, painting this painting, and being kind of thinking about this. Also, another thing is, as a female artist, I'm in the studio all the time. The studios are there, and it's just kind of, I have my back. There's something. Also, I heard this talk by the student professor at Yale, Jonathan Herrera Soto. He said something about you're painting, you have your back to the world. There's something about that directionality, I don't know. So that's something I kind of represented as well. I'm painting this, but there could be anything behind me. There can whatever. So that's what I've been working on. It's something a little bit more serious, and not something so directed at the border I've been doing, and just learning or understanding or trying to take care of the person that I'm representing, because it's not a self-portrait. I kind of tired of painting myself, because that's the assignments that we keep getting, right? But how to depict this little girl and take care of her, because these people are going to watch her, and how to do that. So it's constantly thinking and developing. And so that's what I'm doing. After this podcast, I'll go to that studio and figure
Spend a lot of time there, I bet.
But yes.
And what I find interesting is that you said you're not addressing the physical border of El Paso where you grew up, right? But now you're addressing your own personal borders. So to me, as a person who grew up in the area, who grew up in the sister cities El Paso, Juarez, we understand what a woman's body represents in that space.
Absolutely.
And you worked on feminicidios and studied it. I mean, Juarez is known for, for the feminicidio. So that comes also from our upbringing, because I feel the same way of how you always are constantly protecting yourself. And when I travel, a lot of women in other parts of the world don't feel that way. That constant feeling of persecution, or that constant feeling of insecurity. So even though you're not addressing the border physically, geographically, the border's still within you, and it's coming through your paintings in a whole different direction, because even though it's abstraction, you're bringing it, and your essence is still coming through, and that woman from the Bordeña, as you mentioned, that you call yourself, is coming through. So to me, that's admirable. We're gonna see another face of your your maturity. I keep saying maturity because I like to see that in your work, but that another face of who you are as an artist and as a woman. So I look forward to seeing that painting as well. So
something to look forward to.
Exactly.
I just had one more question. It came up while you were just sharing that, of how you're trying to express. What would you say to an up and coming artist that you might think of now? Well, if I would have known this maybe a little bit earlier on. I mean, you discovered it thankfully at a young age. But if there's someone else that maybe you could give some advice to, what would that be?
I think my biggest thing is allow yourself to be present in all spaces of art. So if you have the privilege of being in university and being able to learn through these courses, take that information in, and also being in the privilege, being in spaces of privilege, such as the exhibitions, and make those connections to the people, because really, they're the ones I think that I find myself pushing me and supporting me. It is a movement. It's not a competition. This art stuff, it really is or that's how I see it, at least.
Yeah.
There is some selfishness to it, because that's how you keep moving up the ladder. But really, it's how do you put your friends on, and how do you do all that? So I think I don't know. I just would say it's the typical be yourself, but really don't be afraid with just go crazy. I don't know,
Don't be afraid to take the step or something.
Or to hold back. Don't hold
To
back.
hold back.
Don't be afraid. Because that's what I see when I see your work.
Yes.
You're not holding back.
Yes, mentally and formally as well.
And now physically with your body. How
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
using
Yeah,
your
that's
body
true. That's
now.
very true. So
Yeah.
I think that's
All in.
absolutely.
Citlali, we just want to thank you for giving us the space and the time to get to talk to you, because we know you're busy. We're going to continue to follow your work, and we're going to continue to reach out to you and put your work out there so other people can see it. Again, if you want to follow Citlali on Instagram, please do so. It's Arte Citlali at Instagram. So.
We'll put the links in the video description. And we'd also like to let you know, and maybe with your permission, we'd like to set up a crowdsourcing space for you, in case, because we think it's important to support this kind of stuff.
Yes.
So we'll put all that in our description here, because we think it's important that what you're doing, and appreciate what you're doing for your movement.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people want to support your work, want to support you. They want to see what you're putting out there, and we want to see what's going to happen with your career. We're excited.
Thank you.
All
Thank
these
you for
projects.
reaching out to me for this opportunity, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you. And you have a space here whenever you want to come back and show your work. We're gonna be following your exhibition next semester, so we'll be posting something on that as well.
Check out all their stuff in the museum. So, all right.